So welcome everyone. This is Dr. Alana James, and out of all of the webinars I have done this year, I am most excited about this one. How to build success out of being different, especially when it's hard. I want to ask several questions for you to reflect on as we get started, as kind of a background to this. And if you feel like, those of you who are in the room, if you feel like typing in a few words, that would help us get this off. But what words would you use to describe the ways or the places you don't feel like you fit in graduate school? We know there can be lots of things. There can be culture, there can be age, there can be work status, there can be family status. There can be just whether or not you have imposter syndrome or suffering from anxiety. There's a million places that in our heart of hearts, really privately, we don't feel like we fit. And then from that, who are the people that bring up those feelings? Because it's probably not everywhere. It's probably under certain circumstances. So if you can identify those, the tool that may be helpful that I put at the end may become a little easier to work with. Do these feelings or situations have real world outcomes? Meaning, to what extent is it just feeling, or do you have data that show that you are in fact being excluded from something that you want to be included in? And then finally, do you have an idea how to use the rules of argumentation to turn the tables on this? And that's kind of generally where we're going. And already Erica has said age, and that would have been part of it for me. And real world outcomes, a constant reminder of cultural capital that you don't have because you come from a different one. So it's like you don't quite know what the game is. And we're going to look at some literature and talk about what people have seen when they research that. So goals. But just I guess I want to say right away, if this is ringing a bell to you, know that the people in your graduate studies office know this stuff exists. When I go to a Council of Graduate Schools meeting, we're always talking about how we help this not be this on a college campus. It's a big issue, and it has lots of little outcomes. So our goals for today are at a very personal level to help you feel better and be stronger when you're faced with the actions of others that put you outside of the conversation. And also to better consider how authors and speakers use argumentation in everyday settings and how you might use it yourself. So how are we going to get there? Well, first discussion is, why does it feel bad, and what is known in research literature about being different or being an outsider? And then I'm going to ask for a little discussion about how that shows up on your campus. And then we're going to talk about what we know is the outcomes of insider-outsider, and both personally and professionally. So you can see the track of your experience in the broader world. I think it's always useful to ground in that. And then we're going to talk about what it can be done about it. And I have inspirational stories from two people, one of whom I just think is fantastic. And then an actual, here's the steps of argumentation and how you can use that as a self-talk tool to help you turn outsider feelings around and actualize your own personal strengths. I have places to go to dig deeper, a lot, and then a little conversation at the end about what's coming up from summer, because I really hope you will help me understand if we're on the right track here for summer. Okay, so first snippet of conversation about this is, why does feeling different or being an outsider feel bad? What does the research literature tell us? And start with the definition. As groups and collectivities become self-conscious and solidary, is that a word? Under conditions of social polarization, their members tend to claim unique or privileged access to certain kinds of knowledge. Okay, let's look at that. As our world brings groups of people and collectives together, they tend to naturally become polarized, and their members tend to claim unique or privileged access to certain kinds of knowledge. You might call it cultural capital. You might call it social capital. It might be financial capital. But there are things that the insiders know that the outsiders don't. This can be described as the doctrine of the insider, which includes the claim that the outsider has structurally imposed incapacity for access to such knowledge. And that's the feeling that we get, that there's something structurally imposed that we are not capable of getting over. The distinctive interactive roles of insiders and outsiders involve interchange, trade-offs, synthesis, and in the formation of social knowledge, and actually also economic knowledge. All of these are all of the resources I've linked at the end. So the consequences to us when we feel like we're outsiders, and probably almost everybody feels like they're an outsider in some circumstances, but the consequences are often measured, especially in research literature, in ways that are economic. So incumbent workers in a labor market, the insiders often enjoy more favorable employment opportunities than the outsiders. That if I was a white man and I heard a lot of women talking, I would feel like the outsider. So all the way through this conversation, I just want to highlight for us that within our lives, even if we are privileged, and even if we have insider information and we're given more privilege because of it, at other times in our life, it won't hold true. And so the lessons to be learned here, I hope, are powerful. The most obvious labor turnover cause or the socialization in the firm, etc. But further costs can arise from, and I think this happens a lot on college campuses, the attempts of the insiders to resist competition with outsiders by refusing to cooperate or with harassment. And then these particular authors were researching economic situations. But I think that these are useful. So I would ask the people in the room, how do you see insiders and outsiders playing out on your university campuses? And as I'm waiting for some people to type, Adrian has said that there are things that happen to us personally that can be challenging, and other people can have difficulty with them. And with that, we would put in health challenges, disability challenges, language, perhaps, just a host of things that can be because of our personal circumstances that bring up these issues. Have to say, less in the know, yes. And I would suspect, because I have been coaching some people that are like that with me a second, occurred to me that maybe Ireland to the United States is not always the best in sound. There we go. That might help. Okay, so is the sound getting better? I located geographically, being working, and so full-time students get information and know how things are, and part-time students struggle. Insiders tend to innately understand norms, mores, and those power moves throughout the university. And if they don't, Nicole, they have more access to people they can ask. So getting good mentoring is useful in that one. Greater exposure documented exhaustively the polarization of American society. And this is Brene Brown, and she polarization of American society would lead to more social interaction. If we've hunkered down ideologically and geographically with those we perceive to be just like us, doesn't that mean we've surrounded ourselves with friends and people with whom we feel deeply connected? Shouldn't "you're either with us or against us" have led to closer ties among the like-minded? And in fact, the opposite is happening. At the same time that cultural and political sorting is on the rise, so is loneliness. Brene, you may know her. She's an excellent sociologist from the University of Houston, amazing author and speaker. And she has gone into the places and to not do what she calls hunkering down in our bunkers. And I'll lead into that. So we know it's not good, and we know that we have a tendency to hunker down in our bunkers when we feel threatened. So let's take a step back and look at what it means to us personally and our skills, and industrial revolution. So if you aren't familiar with this part of our work, you can look up those in your resources part of your website. And we have a couple of box sets that go in depth into the 10 skills, which all of us need. All skills have to do with how to get along with people who are very different. Emotional intelligence, critical thinking, and creativity. And those last three are because by interacting easily, in us, allows us to, and yes, even our creativity, because we have a broader range of the world to bring to the being us. I just want to say that I like her a lot. And I have been working with her meditations with Deepak Chopra now for 4 years or more. And so every day for a few minutes, I hear her talk about how she sees the world. And I just think it's beautiful. So one of her great quotes, and speech at Smith University, where she says, but she says it in many locations, we are much more alike than we will. Yet we know that the effects of ostracism endure. So back to the literature. We see in research that demonstrated ostracism to be excluded and or ignored leads to detrimental effects on 4 human needs: belonging, control, self-esteem, and meaningful existence. These or prolonged in some, particularly individuals suffering from anxiety, who may not actually be able to get back to having their feeling of belonging, control, their own self-esteem, or their own sense of meaningful existence more slowly. The reason I highlighted that was because of our work a few weeks ago that received a big amount of notice from universities on worry, anxiety, and imposter syndrome. So we know that those 3 things are in large amounts on college campuses. And we know that this being different leads us to a place where we might feel ostracized, and that these 4 kinds of human needs are impacted. So that's what research tells us. Now I want to go on to what can be done about it. Because if we just look at this, we sit in our own puddle of, again, from her commencement speech at Smith University. It wasn't until I was about 30 years old, coming to Chicago, that I realized I no longer wanted to. Just be on TV. I was actually interviewing members of the Ku Klux Klan one day, skinheads from the Ku Klux Klan. You can learn from everything. No opportunity is wasted. And in the middle of the interview, I would see their ideals were, and watching them signal each other, I could see they were also having a private conversation. I thought I was using them to expose hatred and vitriol, and they were using me as a recruitment platform. So you can just imagine I would no longer be used by television, that I would figure out a way to let television be used by me, to turn it into a platform that could be of service to the viewers. And in that, the moment was just doing a show, just being on a show. I made the clear intention to use every show to inform, to encourage, to inspire, to uplift, and entertain at the same time. And I decided that the notion of stand would also change the paradigm of every show. So I said to my producers, I will only do shows that are in alignment with my truth. I will not allow myself to be put in a chair and talk to somebody who I am not aligned. I will not fake it. I will not fake it. I can only imagine like you were faking it to in a situation, we all would raise our hands. It's a natural human thing to laugh at a joke you don't think is funny, or to turn your back on something you actually are very happy about, or to not stand up for yourself in some way. So then we have to ask, how did it turn out when she told that? Well, she says, so when I figured that out, the show took off. And we know that, of course, it was vastly successful. So what does Oprah recommend? And this is again from her talk. Dedicate yourself to service. The only empowerment is when your personality, when you use who you are, what you've been given, the gifts you hold to serve the calling you have been brought to earth to serve. Feedback to others. To do, propelled to do, driven to do, whatever word you want to use. And then when you are in a situation, there's distance, there's something, feedback to others that you hear them. Because every person, every argument you've ever been in, every conversation or confrontation, every person just wants to know that they are heard. Every argument you have with your friends is not about whatever it is you're arguing about. It's ultimately about, do you hear me? If you can mirror back to that person, yes, I hear you, and this is what you're saying. When you can do that, it's an open prayer for which it is the greatest, highest calling for myself. So you actually do what all of our universities have been encouraging you to do since you entered the gates. You shift the paradigm to service. And just coincidentally, being aligned with service is another one of those 10 skills that I brought up. Okay, now that was a particularly spiritually oriented, very successful woman in media. But from a completely different angle, I wanted to talk a little bit because I saw the same story playing out in Chris Brogan. You may or may not know him. He writes about business things. He's very well known. For a younger person, he built quite a following for himself and now speaks to the very big companies about what he knows and thinks. And one of his books is called The Freaks Shall Inherit the Earth. It's a business book written in 2014, and it has 3 premises. That those who don't fit in, who have never fit in, are a better position to see the unusual and profit from that perspective. So I hope that for those who are watching this video, there's sort of an aha moment there. Because for all the times we don't feel like we were just in a position to see something unusual. The advantages of being a free to change more quickly And this flexibility gives you a cognitive advantage, remembering that one of those 10 skills is cognitive flexibility. And he talks about Manchu, which is finding your true family of like-minded people and learning to treat them better than friends, to take care of each other. Then take that Manchu mindset out into everything you do and be prepared. Others are saying, because as from a position, if we can get there, we can use this perspective that's unusual, and we can tell people what others aren't saying. And I highly recommend at least the first 5. All the people that have come to him and said, "Oh yeah, I'm a freak." Major lawyers, major scientists, etc. Once again, to some extent, she became interviewing a Ku Klux Klan member. Moment for her. She said, "No, I'm not doing this. I'm not getting used this way." So I would imagine that flying universities and having the awareness that they were taking the money of students from school and get it for people getting higher degrees. They were letting everyone in. So lots and lots of people who did not have the preparation that many of your schools would have not allowed, being held to the same standards as everybody else. Steps that eventually led me to branch out on my own and do this. Really give this some thought. Any that are other than, okay, no hands going up on this one. These are really the moments she's a freak. So happy. My son is right. You know, yeah. I what small reminder here. What is an argument? An argument generally is 3 or 4 things. We know what we want to claim and we claim. It. Then we state the data that we have that got us there, and in human terms, we tell our story. We tie that data in. We deliver a warrant between what has happened or what the data show and the claim you want to make. And there are several, at this point, it breaks out to where there's several kinds of arguments. You can have a single focused argument, perspective, claiming it again, or you can bring in the pros and cons of the opposing perspective, or you can tell us the pros and cons of each position that you're making. So your arguments can get more involved. But basically, they claim, they state the data, they tie the data together, and they back do the claim. So I wondered, how can we use self-talk in the form of an argument? How can we argue with ourselves for our full strength when we aren't feeling this? Yeah. Oh, now I hope it doesn't move. Know what you want. An outsider, you would want to claim that I'm a strong person and these feelings of inadequacy don't serve me. I can. And then you would want to fill in the blank of what you're propelled to do. So I would have said, when I was adjunct at, I would have said, because I just didn't like some of the things that were going on around me and how students were, just stuff. I would said, I'm a strong person. These feelings of I can't do anything about this don't serve me. I can figure out a way to help students, a broader base of students, be strong in themselves so they can get through these challenges. Touch and strength. So we all have things in our past that we are proud of, that we have done, that weren't easy. So those are your data that prove that you have these skills, albeit maybe in another set of circumstances, but you have done these things. Then you tie the data in with between what has happened and the claim you want. So I know that I can do what I'm propelled to do because I have these strengths. Because I have these strengths, because I am strong, intelligent, whatever your words are, I know I can turn these feelings about outsider around and then fill in what it is you're propelled to do. To actually do it. And feel like you're missing all the clues because they have some sense Maybe sound is back. Apologies. Same, no sound. Back. Sound back. Anybody? Can you hear me? Good. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for writing. No, for watching by recording. Adrian, I liked what you had to say. And I think the book that you're recommending, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, is one that is worthy for lots of people. So that's Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, and it's called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And that probably has lots of other tools similar to this one. We get into habits of feeling instead of defining ourselves as big and defining ourselves by the futures that we are building. And that takes us in a big loop, doesn't it? Back to Oprah saying, find a future that handouts, and they have links. So the articles, the journal articles on the research I was quoting, and the media pieces, which would be Brene Brown, Oprah Winfrey, and Chris Brogan, are there. And that last link is the YouTube interview for freaks too. And then I want a couple of things from you, if you would, and thanks for every live. And I really want you to be completely truthful on this one. On a scale of 1 to 5 to you personally, how useful is this kind of conversation? That come to our larger research-oriented conversation, but I think, okay, so would everybody just please vote on that? Is this the kind of thing that you think about and it has meaning? And should we be, yeah, Sally Ann, the question is how useful, scale to 1 to 5, 5 being very useful, is this kind of conversation to you personally, and you're getting your master's or doctoral work done? Because it's a mix for us as a company. This is obviously where my heart is. I want to make sure that everybody who wants this kind of feedback gets this kind of feedback. And it's a bit of a going out on a limb to be inspirational, if you would. But at the same time, if it helps, does it help keep you in school? Does it help you keep your feet to the path? Any comments there? Because the mission, good to be in a community, good to have other people. Thank you. Any other comments here? I know it's tough to say. These are the things that will ultimately lead us into how much we do what we do, the different parts of what we do. And what it means to you. Let me just say, summer's coming, and summer's over already. What have I been doing for these 3 months? Talking, surfing. Oh yeah, right. And to take you forward. So these are some ideas I have. I know that Dr. Maria, and I think what she's intending to do either now or in the fall is break out argumentation. So in more depth. And if you would like to know things, and then I thought I'd hold 4 sessions. Anything could not held to the standard of it coming out of your field, unless you want to say something to your field. It comes from you personally, and you feel it's an important topic. We'll write that 4 sessions, so that implies that there's some discussion. And then there's some writing, and then there's some more writing, and then we'll finish up at the end talking about where you might get that kind of writing published. That's one idea. And then another idea I have, this came out of a meeting at sessions hosted by academics that come from the same cultural place as a large number of students. So an African-American academic hosting one of our kind of a get-together meeting in the summer about what his or her experience academics, and maybe the same kind of thing for Latino or Latino. And if you had other things I should consider, some kind, but by people who it's true that maneuvering through academic life is very different depending upon your cultural path. And so given that, some questions. Comments, that usual kind of conversation today. It brings out soul searching, and that's good. You know, I think argumentation close-up series we will definitely do. Will she do 2 in the summer and 2 in the fall? We get a lot bigger audiences in the fall. Session was recorded, and not only is it recorded, but we will break it up into it up on your university.doctoralnet.com websites. The slides are also up in the handouts, and to a large part, I was reading the slides today because I was quoting from other people. So with that, I will turn off the recording, and then